you answer my question, why the people making the allegations, or certainly Principal one, were not interviewed in this inquiry?
Thanks, Deputy. I mean, it is the case that the allegations that were sent to me by the department were anonymous. We didn't know who they were. And that remained the position right up until sometime in December, several weeks after the investigation had commenced. And an incident arose in the Cavan Monaghan division where one of the people who were involved in this was in the station and confronted by a sergeant, and this man was printing off pulse documents off the computer, and he was asked what he was doing, and he indicated that he was printing off information off the pulse system to hand over to a political representative. And he was confronted on that, and he was told he shouldn't be doing it, and a discussion took place, and it wouldn't be appropriate to go into that. But resulting from that, he did indicate that he and another person were providing information to a politician in relation to the penalty point system. The result of that was that I took advice both from the Data Protection Commissioner and the Attorney General's office, and I issued a direction. And that's well publicised, Deputy. I think all of this has been out the public domain, unfortunately, but there you go. And I was somehow or other perceived as putting a gagging order on these people. And in amongst the directions that I sent down to the local command was to ask these people if they had any information at all, that they should provide that information to Assistant Commissioner John O'Mahony, who is now investigating these allegations that are in the public domain. And in addition, if they had any documents that they had obtained from the Garda Pulse system, that they should hand it over. They should not have those documents in their possession. And that is when we became aware of these people, and that is the facts of the situation. We didn't at the particular time become aware that when these allegations manifested themselves.
I want to go back to the issue of the penalty points. Just as a comment, I don't accept your rationale in respect of the manner in which this matter was investigated. That is not for a second to cast an aspersion on the Assistant Commissioner. I'm sure he's a very fine and professional man. But it is hugely problematic that the matter was not investigated and reported on by an independent entity. So I know you disagree with that, but I just want to put that on the table. But more specifically, Commissioner, I want to return to the issue of the whistleblowers, the two Gardaí that came upon this information. You've told us earlier on that this matter came to your attention in December 2012. Am I correct in that? If you just verify for me, as a result of a turn of events in Cavan Monaghan. Mm-hmm. You say that at that point the investigation was underway. You say that the matters, the information was brought forward, so far as you were concerned, by anonymous sources. Is that a fair summation of the evidence you've given today? Well, can I just put it to you, Commissioner, that is completely at odds with what the two Gardaí themselves say. They say that in March 2012, that they informed the internal Garda confidential recipient and senior Garda management of what they saw as a malpractice or an abuse of the system. They also have said very clearly that their names were attached to this allegation. They came forward in good faith, and they went through the appropriate system and procedure within An Garda Síochána. So that is clearly at variance with the evidence that you've given to the committee today. So could you explain to me that discrepancy?
Thanks, Deputy. Well, I don't want to be at odds with you because I seem to be fighting with everybody, as you say.
I'm fine.
I think there might be a dispute over the date, but certainly we were aware of the issue that you've raised, and that is forming a separate investigation. And in fact, that file is now gone to the DPP in relation to that aspect. So that's there and that's a given. So that's not at variance with what I was saying earlier on. We were not aware. I was given, I suppose, just to try and assist further, when this matter was brought to my attention first, I received two lists, if I can call them that, A and B. They totaled, give or take, 400 allegations. A lot of them crossed. There was duplication in some. And anyway, the analysis of all of that we arrived at a situation where 189 separate allegations were made, and they related to 2,198 issues with tickets where they were cancelled. And that's where the examination of Inspector or Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony's team led them. So that was running separate to the other matter that you've raised.
No, I want to focus very specifically on the two Gardaí who came forward in respect of the quashing of these penalty points. And those two individuals say very clearly that they brought this matter to the attention of the authorities in March 2012. That they went directly to the confidential recipient within An Garda Síochána, as per procedure. That they attached their names to this matter from the get-go.
Okay.
Your earlier evidence suggests that you came upon this matter in December, and furthermore, that the matter was from an anonymous source. That does not tally with what the two Gardaí in question, one now a former Garda, let it be said. That's not what they're saying.
Okay. Thanks, Deputy. First of all, the confidential reporting mechanism that's in place doesn't afford me the facility of knowing who the confidential reporter is. As you're aware, these people, whoever they may be or may choose to be, report their issue to the confidential recipient, Mr. Connolly. Mr. Connolly, in turn, sends me the import of the allegations, and I, in turn, have those matters investigated. So I don't actually know who the confidential reporter is.
But that may well be.
Oh, that is the case, Deputy.
But that, given that that's the case, it is still, however, very inaccurate for you to say that the complaint or the allegation was made anonymously.
No, it certainly isn't, and I wouldn't misrepresent the situation to this committee, far from it. It's clearly the case that I didn't know who these people were at the time the reporting, that these allegations were presented to me.
But the system knew, Commissioner. You see, to say that the allegations or the complaint was made anonymously implies that the two Gardaí concerned, through some surreptitious manner, forwarded these allegations and ran away from them. That's not the case. The case is that the two officers in question went through exactly the appropriate procedure, went to the confidential recipient, made the allegation, and they are absolutely emphatic that at no stage did they wish to distance themselves or have a cloak of anonymity. They were going by the book. So my concern is, why would you come to a committee and say that these matters were anonymous? And bear in mind, you offered up that information in response to Deputy Ross's question as to why the two men in question hadn't been interviewed in the course of the Assistant Commissioner's investigation. And you offered up the rationale that these matters had been brought anonymously.
Yeah, well, we better get the lines clear here, Deputy. While I don't have the precise date that the two individuals you mentioned reported to the Assistant Commissioner Human Resource Management, it is clearly the case that a report of malpractice and corruption was made, and it's clearly the case that a Chief Superintendent investigated those matters, and it's certainly the case that that file is now with the DPP. So leaving that to one side for a moment, we then had a situation where I was presented with these anonymous allegations, and I was asked to examine these and provide views. So I got the Assistant Commissioner and his team to go and look at these issues and provide the report that's now in the public domain. That's exactly the sequencing of this matter. And when I was responding to Deputy Ross, I responded in the context of whether or not these people had been interviewed. The report from the Assistant Commissioner, having looked at the allegations and established the facts, didn't see a need on the basis that he hadn't uncovered criminality. So therefore there was no need to defer to the Director of Public Prosecutions. But had it been the case that he saw clear evidence or even a suspicion of corruption or malpractice within the allegations that he had in front of him, then that would have triggered, I'm presuming, these people being interviewed.
Well, isn't that extraordinary, though? And by the way, the individuals concerned aren't a bit hazy on the date or the detail. It was March 2012.
I would have thought it was later because I'm aware of it, but I don't.
No, it was March 2012. They went through the established channels. There was no management response, Commissioner. They saw nothing happening, and it was for that reason that these matters came into the public domain. That's their clear statement of the facts of the matter. And they are concerned at the fact that they weren't interviewed in the process of investigating these matters.
Well, it is the case, Deputy, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but it is the case when I became aware that one of the gentlemen had indicated that he was working with his colleague in providing information for a particular deputy, that I then triggered a direction to the management in both of those areas to ask these people if they had any documentation that they had obtained off the polls to hand it over in the first instance, and if they had any complaint or any matter that they wanted to bring to the attention of the Assistant Commissioner, who is now charged with investigating all of these allegations, that they should do so. I was very clear, I was very precise, and that happened well, probably beyond that, I'd say, Deputy, and I don't have a date, but
Well, you're earlier on, you were saying December 2012.
But the incident happened, so it may have spilled into.
Can I just explain to you what
within the currency of the Assistant Commissioner's inquiry?
Can I just say to you the difficulty I have with the way in which you've portrayed this sequence of events, and this is to leave aside the independence of the report or even the outcome of that, because that's been fully ventilated here. See, in your earlier contribution to this meeting, you painted up a scenario whereby a Garda had been caught printing off material that you say they were handing over to a Dáil deputy in what you would understand to be in an inappropriate way. You furthermore said that the individuals concerned weren't interviewed in the course of this independent report because of an issue of anonymity. And I don't know if it was by accident or design, Commissioner. I'm presuming it was accidental. That gave an entirely wrong impression of the sequence of events, because as far back as March, the two officers concerned, in good faith, went through the appropriate procedures within An Garda Síochána in respect of making a disclosure. They saw no response to that, Commissioner, and I can only surmise as a result of concern or frustration, they felt that they had to bring these matters into the public domain. And of course, as we now know, that's what actually triggered all of the public discussion and the inquiry into these matters. And I really don't think that it is fair in this committee or elsewhere to suggest that the two individuals in question acted in any way other than entirely properly, entirely honourably and in good faith. And I feel that you did not give that impression to the committee, and I feel that the record needs to be corrected on that score.
Okay, thanks, Deputy. And let me do that now, if I may. First of all, if any member of the Garda Síochána at any rank feels that there is an issue of impropriety or malpractice or corruption or any of those terms you wish to name, I want to make it very, very clear and put on the record, it's their perfect entitlement to report that, either up through their authorities or via the confidential recipient route. That's my position. Clearly I'm saying that. What I'm saying to you in relation to people going on the pulse system, trawling records, pulling them off and handing them over, I'm saying before you do that, it's important that if you have an issue, that you actually report it on up. Because let's face it, Deputy, we all have responsibilities towards when we see wrongdoing. So every member of the Garda Síochána is obligated to report any form of wrongdoing on up through the channels or deal with it whichever way they see best. And in this instance, if you're trawling a system, a policing system, looking for things that you feel are not right, and then producing them elsewhere, then that is fundamentally wrong.
And I hear and I understand in your position as Garda Commissioner, I understand you saying that and why you would say it. But I think you're missing the fundamental point here. And the fundamental point is that in March, the matter was raised by the book and in an entirely appropriate manner within the structures of An Garda Síochána. Nothing happened, according to the two Gardaí. Nothing happened at all. No response. And that is what triggered the, if you like, public disclosure of the concern and the material that you referred to. So that raises lots of questions, not least the efficiency or effectiveness of your system of whistleblowing or confidential disclosures. I mean, how do you account for the fact that from March, several months elapsed, a serious allegation had been made through the appropriate channels as per procedures, and yet there was no response, no reaction, and the two officers concerned, I suppose, felt they had no other option if they wished to have the matter addressed but to bring it into the public domain through whatever channel.
Again, Deputy, we have received a number of confidential reports. Some of them, I believe, and I must be careful here because these are what they're supposed to be, is confidential. But there are similarities in relation to some of the issues that were investigated and some of the reporting from earlier on that were investigated. So that's as far as I can put it. You know, if
you account for the fact, and I'm glad that you've made the distinction because it is an important one, the disclosures are confidential, they are not anonymous. Just to underscore that point again. How do you account for the fact?
They can be, Deputy, they can be both.
And in this instance, they weren't, it was confidential but not anonymous. How do you account for the fact that several months passed and nothing was done. And arguably, perhaps nothing would have done and there wouldn't be any report at all on this issue, but for the fact that 2 officers brought this matter into the public domain.
I would expect if matters of that nature were brought to the attention of the Assistant Commissioner, that they would have been actioned. And my information is that a file is now at the DPP. I don't have the finer points that you seem to have, Deputy, but the fact remains that those matters are with the DPP.
Well, what won't be with the DPP and what rests with yourself is the issue of the system that you have within An Garda Síochána for confidential disclosures of this nature.
Yes, and those matters, all of the reports I get from the confidential reporter that are passed to me are investigated without delay.
How many such reports would you have had
I don't
over the last 18 months?
They're small in number, but I'm not at liberty to go into those things.
I'm not looking for the detail of
Yeah.
them, just the quantity.
They're small in number.
10,
No,
a dozen?
They're small in number.
two or 3.
They're small in number.
You can't give a number. Why can't you give a number?
Because this is a confidential process.
I'm not asking for the subject matter or any of the fine detail, just the quantum of it. How many? You're not prepared to answer that?
They're small in nature. That's
Okay.
small in number. I beg your pardon. They're small in number.
So I'm going to assume less than 20, say, over the last 18 months, less than 10?
I think your assumption would be correct, Deputy.
Okay. And are you absolutely sure that each of those disclosures have been processed and dealt with in a fair and appropriate manner?
They have all been returned to the reporter, and he has, well, I'm not entirely clear what he does with them after that. That's his business, but my obligation is to receive them, have them investigated and report back, and that's what I do.
And that's what's happened in every case. So why didn't it happen here? Why, given that the complaint or the disclosure was made in March of 2012, why was it not on your desk by April of that year?
My understanding
And why did we have this turn of events?
My understanding is that the people you're speaking about reported to the Assistant Commissioner HRM, and that the matter has been ongoing since. That's my understanding of it.
Without any reference to yourself?
I don't believe I have anything in my office.
So, but then just explain to us what the standard procedure is where a disclosure is made. So the officer concerned approaches the confidential recipient. Mm-hmm. So talk us through it. What happens then?
The confidential recipient examines the matter, does whatever he does, and he forwards the import of what's reported to him to me mm-hmm. for investigation. Mm-hmm. I have a number of people nominated mm-hmm. at Assistant Commissioner level to go and investigate these matters mm-hmm. and report back to me. I then report their product back to the confidential report.
So what should have happened here is that when the officers came forward and made their disclosure, that should have found its way onto your desk.
Well, they could equally have gone through their own management and had the matter investigated. You know, there are a number of ways in which you'd report these things, but the confidential reporter is one.
Yes, and when you go to the confidential reporter or recipient, the next step is to yourself, isn't that right?
Yes.
Well, the 2 Gardaí are very clear that they went to that confidential recipient.
And I have a number of those type of reports that passed through my office and had been reported back on, and some are still outstanding. You know.
I know, but I'm only interested for this purposes on this particular one. What happened? Did it land on your desk? Did it not make it to your desk?
I don't have the names. This is what I'm trying to tell you, Deputy. I don't have the names of the people.
No, I'm not talking about the names of the people, which I don't intend
Okay.
to say here. I'm saying that two individuals went through this particular route on this substantive issue, and that the appropriate way of dealing with this is for the confidential recipient then to report to yourself, because you're in charge, and then you nominate from your panel of people. They chose this route in March 2012, and precisely nothing happened. Precisely nothing. So I want you to explain to me what happened.
I'm trying to explain to you, Deputy. If a report comes to me through those channels, I don't delay. I move those on. I move them out to an assistant commissioner, is usually in this situation, and they will go off and report back. Have I seen some similarities in what I've been receiving and some of the allegations that Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony investigated? Yes, I have. But what I'm saying to you, within the confidential reporting mechanism, I don't have the names of those individuals who are reporting.
No, but you have the substance of the
Absolutely,
allegation.
absolutely.
This isn't about the names, this is about the substance of the
Well, I thought
allegation.
that's what we were discussing.
So I need you to tell me either yes, this matter landed on your desk from the confidential reporter,
Yes.
or no, it didn't.
Deputy, I just have to keep repeating myself, and I'm not so sure where this is going. I don't have the names. If these people have reported through the confidential reporter their issues, it will come to me and I will have those matters investigated and sent back. But that doesn't, so I don't know who these people are. That's part of the system. So
No, I understand the
So
system.
I don't necessarily have
Well,
the
then
names.
are you then saying, Commissioner, that several different reports landed on your desk on this very same issue?
I'm saying a number of reports have come to me through the confidential channel and have been returned. I'm also indicating...
Dealing with the issue of the quashing of penalty points?
I'm also indicating that I have seen a number of similarities with some of the issues that have come through the confidential reporting system. I've seen similarities with what the allegations that were before Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony, yes.
Okay. I find this very sort of torturous
So
in
do
terms
I,
of getting
Deputy.
the information from you. I'm simply trying to establish, did the system work for these two whistleblowers?
Sure.
And you can't precisely tell me, or maybe you are telling me that in fact several reports on the same issue landed on your desk and you just can't be sure from whom they emanated. Is that what you're saying?
That's it, Deputy.
Okay.
That's what I've been trying to sort of indicate to you.
So the two Gardaí weren't alone in raising this substantive issue. Is that it?
Again, I don't know, Deputy, but...
No, you know if the issue landed on your desk or not.
Deputy, I could make assumptions. But I'm not in the business of making assumptions. But I could make assumptions that some of the confidential reports that I got and had attended to and presented back to the reporter were in fact from these two individuals. But that's an assumption on my part.
Okay, so...
it would be unsafe.
All right. Well, we'll drop...
We can all make up our own minds as to whether that is de facto the position or not.
Okay, well, we forget the assumptions then. Did at any stage a report, never mind who the names attached to it were, land on your desk in respect of the quashing of penalty points from the confidential report?
Yes,
it is.
Some, very few, but some.
Okay.
Certainly nothing near the volume of allegations that was presented to me that I asked Assistant Commissioner O'Mahony to look into.
Okay.
I must be clear about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So given then that is the case, so we've established that this matter did land on your desk, it strikes me then as strange, and maybe you can give an account of this, as to why it took a very public and unorthodox route from two of your officers to spark the investigation that happened? What I'm getting at is...
With the greatest respect, Deputy, the only one that can answer that question are the two individuals themselves. But I want to be very clear. If somebody has an issue regarding criminality or impropriety of any description, they're at liberty to report that either upwards to their channels or through the confidential reporting, or indeed straight to my office, and I will have it investigated. No ambiguity there at all. That's my position, Deputy.
And equally, if individuals step forward and go through these channels, they have to be absolutely assured that the system will work and that there will be an appropriate response and that they won't be left in a situation where they have made the disclosure confidentially and then nothing happens.
I would be extremely disappointed if anything like that occurred.
And you...
That some response didn't happen either through the confidential recipient reporting mechanism or otherwise. Because if someone is reporting wrongdoing, then, to be fair, it needs to be dealt with.
Do you intend to... Do you intend to go back and review your procedures for confidential disclosures? And
well, the procedures are there. They're very clear, Deputy. You know, to be fair, and if there's a quirk in the system somewhere, then maybe that needs to be looked at. But the number, and they are small, but there have been other matters attended to outside of this area that have gone through the system very successfully.
okay, can I suggest to you that you might go back and look at that again, because for these individuals, clearly the system didn't work. They felt that they made a disclosure, that there was no action taken on foot of it. They were clearly frustrated into a position where they brought matters through a different route into the public domain. And then the response from management is for an in-house investigation of these matters. Can you see from somebody on the outside looking in,
of course,
how bizarre that looks and how worrying that is?
Deputy, of course I have to respect people's views. That's my job, to look at all angles. But all I can tell you is when we were presented with these allegations, that they were taken extremely seriously by me personally, so much so that I appointed my senior investigator in Garda Síochána, Assistant Commissioner John O'Mahony, who has tremendous experience in this area, and he put together a very, very senior team, very experienced people, to look at this issue and deal with it.
And yet you can't account for the fact that there were several months of a delay between when these two honourable people, and they are honourable people, Commissioner, made their disclosure and any action taken.
Can I say to you, I have no axe to grind with these people. They did, I am sure, what they felt was appropriate from their perspective. I did my job. When I got hold of this information, I moved it on fast, and I got a fact-finding report that laid bare the facts as were presented, and that's a matter of record.
Thank you, Carla. And just a final thing to say, that your coming by this information happened to correspond with the matter being raised in the Dáil. And it strikes me that there was a problem in that scenario.
No.
I can't put my finger on exactly what or why.
Just to be clear, Deputy, I came by these allegations when they were sent to me. Had they been sent to me by these two individuals, they would have got the exact same treatment. They are far too serious for me to ignore or push under the door somewhere and say, I'll look at that in 6 months. Not my style, wouldn't do it. Very, very serious allegations that needed to be addressed immediately, and that's what I did.
Well, there's a clear clash between your account of events, Commissioner, and the account of the two.
It's safe to say, Deputy, safe to say, it may very well be the case that some of these matters came up to the confidential reporting system and were dealt with, that I wouldn't have known those names. I don't know. but I can't put it any further for you. Thanks, Chairman.